My house was still smoking when my own son told me I couldn't stay the night. I stood on Michael and Ellen's porch in West Houston, hair damp with ash-flecked rain, clutching a plastic grocery bag with my passport, my late husband's watch, and a half-melted phone. "Mom, it's not a good time," Michael said, eyes flicking over his shoulder. The little porch light hummed, drawing moths. Smoke clung to me like a second skin. "Not a good time?" I heard my voice crack and forced a smile anyway. "I'll sleep on the couch. I brought the spare inhaler for Liam. His allergies, remember?" Even after the fire, I'd asked the EMT for my neighbor's extra water cases, then handed bottles around to strangers. I saved the photo album that mattered to Michael most, the one with crayon handprints. I held it out now. "Look, baby, I kept this safe." Ellen appeared behind him in a silk robe that didn't wrinkle, arms folded, mouth careful. "Victoria, we have early meetings. We can help you find a hotel." She said hotel like it had air quotes. Her eyes skimmed the soot on my face. "Insurance will sort this out. It's better if we all get rest." I searched Michael's face for the boy who used to crawl into my lap after t-ball games, grass in his hair. He wouldn't meet my eyes. "We'll call you in the morning," he said. "Promise." Rain started for real. Big Texas drops that hit hard. I was careful not to drip on their white mat that said home in black letters. Inside, I could see the kitchen island set for tomorrow's breakfast. Steel fruit bowl, Ellen's lemon-scented candle, a neat stack of mail. I remembered Thanksgiving in this same house, me basting the turkey while Ellen arranged a tablescape. I'd tucked a piece of pecan pie for her mother to take home. I remembered Michael rubbing my shoulders when my hands cramped. I remembered believing all of that meant I had a place here. "Okay," I said. I didn't trust my legs. "Thank you for opening the door." They closed it gently. I heard the soft click of the deadbolt. I sat in my Camry in the glow of the streetlight, the bag of keepsakes on the passenger seat. The seat smelled like smoke and dish soap. The firefighter had told me, "Ma'am, we think it started in the kitchen," and patted my shoulder like a shy grandson. He'd given me a foil blanket. I folded it neatly before I left. I was raised to put things back. My phone buzzed. A message from my church group. Praying hands emoji. From my neighbor. "You can stay here if you want." But her spare room had no door, and a new baby cried all night. I called the insurance number and listened to a woman named Erin tell me calmly about processing windows and documentation. When I said, "I lost the documents," she said, "We'll get you a checklist." I watched the porch across the street where people gathered at night to talk about heat and power bills. They had blue folding chairs. Someone was holding a casserole dish in a towel. The city kept humming around me, sirens in the distance, a train horn, the wet click of sprinklers. In my lap, the photo album felt warm from my hands. A thought crept in, small and mean. They expect me to manage alone. They always have. The last few years had been a parade of polite requests. Could I babysit more, lend a little, switch my doctor time, sell the old house because that staircase is dangerous, Mom? Every please tasted like an instruction. I turned the key and drove to a motel off the freeway with a flickering sign. Blue Bonnet Inn. The clerk didn't look up when I asked for a room. His name tag said Ray. I laid my credit card down and watched the black strip of soot where my wristwatch had been. In the room, I placed the album on the desk, aligned with the edge. And then, because there was nothing else to do, I took the Gideon Bible from the drawer, and slid it carefully under the leg of the crooked chair to stop its wobble. The air conditioner rattled. My hair smelled like burned sugar. I lay down in my clothes and stared at the ceiling until the shadow of the ceiling fan made a slow, patient cross over me. Somewhere between the fan's clicks, I felt it. The flash of pain that wasn't from smoke. The realization that I had become convenient. That my kindness had turned into someone else's schedule. That the word "mom" now meant she'll figure it out. I fell asleep like that. Shoes half off, album within reach. The word "home" printed in my head in neat black letters on a white mat I could no longer step on. Morning broke with the stubborn gray of a Houston summer storm. I showered in motel soap and watched the water run dark for too long. When I drove back to what used to be my house, the street was cordoned off with yellow tape, and a black-billed grackle pecked at a twisted spoon in the ash. The air had a chemical sweetness that didn't belong to wood. "Ma'am," a fire investigator said, flashing a badge, "we'll need to walk you through later. You can look from the curb." He was kind. People are often kind when there's tape between you and your life. I stood there, hands in my pockets, like a child told not to touch. That's when I saw Ellen. She was at the edge of my lawn, in jeans and white sneakers that somehow stayed clean, talking fast into her phone. "Yes, the place is a total loss," she said, voice low and efficient. "No, she can't stay alone. We need to make decisions quickly. The lot is good. Corner, mature trees." She turned enough that I could see her face. Composed, a tiny frown of focus. I stepped behind my car door, heart drumming. "Why are you here, Ellen?" Not to hold my hand. The word she used, lot, decisions, didn't sound like grief. She took pictures. Not the kind you take for memory, but the kind you send with a price. The investigator waved to a colleague. I forced myself down the sidewalk to the property line. At the edge of the kitchen, under what used to be the breakfast table, a chunk of green glass glittered wet. I knew that color. Paint thinner. My husband used to keep a can on a high shelf when we painted the nursery yellow. I kneeled carefully. Another shard, a curl of melted plastic, the kind of thing you find under sinks, not on floors, unless it broke there. My breath shortened. I stood up slow, knees popping. In the distance, the freeway hummed like blood in a shell. Back at the motel, I called Michael. He didn't pick up. I texted, "Saw Ellen at the house? Can we talk?" 3 dots flickered, stopped, started again. "Mom, she was just checking on things. Don't stress. Insurance will handle it. Rest." Rest as if it were a duty. As if I hadn't been resting other people's burdens for years. I called someone I hadn't called in a decade. Ed Whitaker, the man who hired me fresh out of community college to do books at his HVAC company. The man who always smelled faintly of cedar and kept lemon drops in his desk. He'd come to the funeral when Daniel died and said, "If you ever need anything, Vicky." I saved his number like a superstition. "Vicky," he said now, voice the same, steadier than mine. "Is it really you?" "I need help," I said. The motel AC rattled louder. "I think. My house wasn't an accident." He didn't say, "Are you sure?" He said, "Come by the office." Ed sat me down in a conference room with mismatched chairs and poured me decent coffee. I told him everything: the porch, the album, Ellen on the lawn, the green glass. The part where Michael said, "Not now." The way my own name sounded in Ellen's mouth, clipped short. "Okay," Ed said. "First, you stay at my guest room. No arguments. Second, we bring in someone who knows fires. And third, He looked at me over the rim of his cup. We slow down how fast other people make decisions about your life. He called a private investigator he trusted, a woman named Carla with a buzz cut and a soft drawl. She met us at my street the next morning with a clipboard. She listened more than she talked. She asked about spare keys, about bank statements, about who had been in my house lately. Any pressure lately to move? Sell? She asked, pen poised. I thought of Ellen's casual comment at Easter. This house is a lot to keep up, Victoria. Older folks move to townhomes with elevators. And the realtor at Sunday dinner, laughing like we were all on the same page. I remembered Michael staring into his coffee when I said I still loved my yard. Some, I said. Carla nodded like it fit with a shape she already knew. I'll be in touch. Ellen called that afternoon. Her voice was the kind you save for customer service. Victoria, we can't let you be unsafe. Michael and I spoke to a care coordinator. There's a community with medical support, activities, everything. It's beautiful. We made you an appointment. A nursing home, I said flatly. It's not a nursing home. It's active living. They have watercolor classes. She paused. You could sell the lot and be comfortable for years. Let us manage it. You shouldn't have to worry about paperwork. A memory rose. Me, 27, in our first Houston apartment, holding baby Michael while the AC went out in August, calling building management over and over until someone came. You shouldn't have to worry about paperwork, I mimicked in my head. I had always worried about paperwork. It kept us alive. I'm not signing anything, I said. I felt my hands shake and place them flat on the table to hide it. Not today. Silence. Then Ellen's voice, almost kind. Trauma makes it hard to see the big picture, Victoria. We're trying to help. When I hung up, Ed was standing in the doorway with a legal pad. Let me guess, he said. Offer to solve my life, I said. At a low price. We both smiled without warmth. He called his lawyer friend Marcia, who recommended something that made me dizzy. Give them what they want, but on your terms. We drafted a limited power of attorney that looked generous and familiar, the kind you slide across a kitchen island to someone you trust. Hidden inside were tripwires, a fraud clause that snapped shut if anyone tried to profit from a sale, limits on accounts, a revocation trigger in my pocket. I practiced holding a pen with a trembling hand. Ed said, You don't have to, Vicky. I said, I do. I need to know who's willing to sign their name to my life. The day I agreed, Ellen arrived at the notary in a blazer the color of whipped cream. Michael in the Navy suit I bought him for job interviews. You're making the right choice, Ellen said softly, pushing papers toward me like coasters. You'll be safe. Safe. People say safe when they mean silent. I signed. The notary watched my face, asked me if I understood. Yes, I said. My voice sounded like it came through a wall. Ellen took the papers from me like a woman collecting receipts. We'll handle the rest, she said to Michael, and to me. Focus on healing. That night, Carla texted, Need to show you something. In person. At Ed's kitchen table, smelling of bacon, his dog asleep under my chair, Carla slid a tablet toward me. Security camera footage from the street behind mine. A white SUV idling after midnight. 2 figures crossing my yard with bags, then leaving lighter. Ellen's SUV, Michael's walk. I covered my mouth. It didn't stop the sound that came out. And this, Carla said, tapping to a lab report. Traces of petroleum, distillates in multiple rooms. Pattern's wrong for an appliance failure. My throat tasted metallic. Ed's hand hovered near mine, then rested on the wood between us, not touching unless I wanted it. "What do I do?" I whispered, with a child who would burn down his mother's kitchen. Ed didn't answer right away. The dog snored. Outside, cicadas screamed. "You remind him you taught him what a stove is for," he said finally, "and you show the rest of the world." The next morning, Ellen called, bright. "Great news, Victoria. We have a buyer ready. Fast close. It's perfect timing." "Timing," I said, eyes on the footage, the green glass memory cutting like a bottle edge. "I'll be there." "Where?" she asked, wary. "At the title office," I said. "I'll bring my ID." I hung up and stared at my hands. They were the hands that packed lunches, adjusted bow ties, wrote checks, cleaned blood from scraped knees, signed a marriage certificate. I flexed them. The skin shifted like paper. Ed slid a cup of coffee toward me. "You ready?" "I'm done being convenient," I said. He nodded once. "Then let's be precise." The title office smelled like printer toner and lemon cleaner. There was a bowl of hard candy on the receptionist's desk. The wrappers had tiny lemons printed on them, the kind Ellen would set in a dish to look expensive. She arrived 5 minutes early in a fitted dress, her hair perfect. A leather folder hugged her ribs like a baby. Michael followed, jaw tight, eyes sliding off mine and finding walls. "Victoria," Ellen said, pressing cool air into my name. "Thank you for coming. We're just going to sign a few things, then you can relax." Relax. They keep picking the wrong word. The title agent, a man with a Texas flag tie, spread out documents like a fan. "Here we are," he said cheerfully. "Deed transfer, disbursement authorizations, acknowledgments for the POA. Y'all are organized." Ellen glowed at that. Michael tapped a foot. I looked at the line where my name was printed, at the dotted space that wanted a signature and a life. "Before we sign," I said, "I have a call." I stepped away and dialed a number I knew by heart now. The door opened behind me. Ed walked in with Carla. Behind them, 2 uniformed officers. Someone's pen stopped scratching. "Excuse me," Ellen said, brittle. "Who are these people?" "Friends," I said. My voice was steady in a way it hadn't been for months. Ed introduced himself as my advisor. Carla introduced herself as a licensed investigator retained to examine my fire. The officers introduced themselves to the title agent, who went suddenly quiet in that practiced corporate way. "This is inappropriate," Ellen said, color draining from her cheeks, but her chin angled up, the way you do when you want to keep the crown level. "Inappropriate," I repeated, as if tasting a new spice. "Let's talk about inappropriate." Carla set her tablet on the glass table, footage pausing on the SUV, on shadows moving through my yard. "We have corroborated surveillance," she said, not unkind, "and a lab report." Michael's body did something. Shoulders up, then down, like a boy caught cheating who still wants to be graceful about it. "Mom," he said, "Ellen just drove. She said it would." He looked at Ellen and then at me, and the distance between those looks told me the rest. "This is absurd," Ellen said, too quickly. "Victoria's confused. She's been under tremendous stress. She signed a power of attorney because she asked for help." "She signed a limited power with protective clauses," Ed said mildly, tapping a page, "which triggered automatically when fraud was attempted. Title can't close on a sale flagged as criminal. Your buyer will have to wait." Alan's mouth opened, closed, opened again. "I was trying to keep her safe," she said, and I could hear the belief in it. The American gospel of tidy solutions, facilities, programs, portfolios. She believed in good lighting and paperwork. I kept you safe, I said, calm now, because Fury had no more work to do. When your first job fell through and Michael cried in my kitchen, I wrote a check and didn't tell anyone how much it hurt. I babysat at midnight and stood in line at the pharmacy when you were sick. I kept your wedding china in my garage when you said you needed your closet to be minimal. I felt my hands open. You could have asked me to move. You could have argued. You could have helped me fix the porch step and sell the old mower and teach me how to set up autopay. But you wanted it fast. You wanted me out of your way. Ellen reached for Michael's sleeve. He didn't flinch, but he didn't lean in either. The taller officer cleared his throat. "Ma'am," he said to Ellen, "we'll need you to come with us to answer some questions downtown." "You can't do this," Ellen whispered, looking to the title agent like he might be a different kind of law. He stared at the lemon bowl. Michael turned to me as if I could still be his refuge. "Mom," he said, and I heard all the ages at once. The toddler who needed rinsing in the sink after mud, the teenager inventing the crueler part of himself, the man who forgot the word please when he needed it most. I didn't mean for it to go that far. "What did you mean?" I asked. "For it to be?" I didn't say it with anger. I said it like a math problem. Answer required. He looked away. He'd never been good at the long division of consequences. Ellen's fingers shook as the officer read her rights. The room changed temperature. Less lemon, more cold air in ducts. As they led her toward the door, she looked back at me with something that wasn't hatred exactly. It was disbelief that a thing arranged so carefully could be disassembled by a person she'd labeled fragile. Outside, the heat slapped all of us. Houston doesn't care about your dramas. It makes you sweat anyway. The officers guided Ellen to the car. Carla shut her tablet. Ed rubbed the back of his neck and exhaled. I stood for a moment on the strip of grass by the curb, feeling my feet inside my shoes. A dragonfly zigzagged over the parking lot, metallic blue, absurdly alive. I let myself feel it, the grief that came late and sideways, the loss of a version of my son I had carried in my chest, like a candle I relit every time the room got dark. The wax, finally, had puddled. The wick burned down. "Can I drive you home?" Ed asked. "Where is that?" I said, not unkindly. "Wherever you want," he said, and his voice did not tremble on you. Home, for a while, was Ed's guest room with the quilt his sister made. Red blocks, white stitching like little roads. I labeled a plastic bin. Important, and put the album on top. The church ladies came with casseroles in foil and stories about their own boys and their own disappointments. We ate on paper plates and fed crumbs to the dog. Carla visited once more to drop off copies of the reports. "You did good," she said. "Most people just fold." "I've spent my life folding fitted sheets," I said. "Turns out I was training." Insurance moved like a parade in July. Slow, pretty, too loud. There were adjusters and forms and an argument over code upgrades. Months gathered. I learned to say, "my attorney," without apologizing for the luxury of the phrase. The lot was cleared. The oak tree in the back survived. It pulled the sky toward it like a sure thing. I stood under it and felt less alone than I did in rooms full of people who loved me incorrectly. Michael called twice. The first time, he cried so hard I could barely understand him. He wanted absolution the way a man wants shade in August, immediately, and without earning it. The second time, he said Ellen's lawyer was aggressive, that things were complicated, that he hoped I wouldn't drag this out. I'm not dragging, I said. I'm walking at my own pace. We were quiet for a moment. You chose a door and closed it on me, I said. It doesn't lock from my side anymore. I planted tomatoes in a whiskey barrel with Ed, who acted like it was normal for a woman my age to plan summer in February. We stood in the garden center sniffing basil. He kissed me one evening in the kitchen like a question. I said yes, like an answer I'd been carrying around. When the foundation for the new house was poured on the old lot, smaller footprint, more windows, I cried behind my sunglasses and didn't pretend it was allergies. The crew led. A kid with a star tattoo on his wrist handed me a Sharpie. Want to write something before it sets? He asked. I knelt carefully and wrote my name and Daniel's and the word stay. Not for anyone else, for the bones of the house. A year later, sitting on my new porch with a glass of sweet tea that I permit myself to water down to exactly how I like it, I watched the neighborhood kids draw chalk galaxies on the sidewalk. The oak threw its deep shade, claiming its same old place. The air smelled like cut grass and rain coming from far away. A car I didn't recognize rolled up and idled. A young woman got out, hair the color of dark honey, a baby on her hip. "Ms. Whitaker?" she called, then caught herself. "I'm sorry, Ms. Vicky? I'm Alyssa." Her voice wobbled. "Michael's." She looked down at the baby and back at me. "I wanted you to meet your granddaughter." My mouth went dry. "You didn't have to come," I said, "because generosity is a muscle, and I wanted to move it on purpose." "I did," she said. "I wanted to say I'm not them, and I'm sorry I stayed quiet when I shouldn't have." I held the baby like a borrowed lantern. She smelled like milk and fabric softener, and that new human sweetness that makes you remember every good thing you ever did. "You're safe here," I told Alyssa, and realized I meant me too. That night, after they left with promises about Sundays and casseroles and chalk, I sat at my kitchen table and wrote 3 lines on a yellow pad. The first was a grocery list. The second was a question for my contractor. The third was a sentence I said out loud to the empty room so the drywall would learn it. I am not convenient. I am necessary. There's a sadness that never leaves, like a picture frame on a wall with nothing inside it yet. I dust it, I look at it, I let it be part of the room. But the room is mine. The windows are open. The fan clicks an honest rhythm overhead, and the mat at my door says, in neat black letters on white, "Welcome." And for once, it means me. Only now do I understand. True strength is not in being needed. It's in choosing to belong to myself.